So, Abraham Maslow. When you hear that name, I bet one thing pops into your head, right? A pyramid. It's got to be one of the most famous images in all of psychology. But what if I told you that simple shape? Well, it's kind of hiding a way bigger, way more revolutionary story about what it means to be human. Yeah, you've definitely seen it, but that's not the whole story. Not even close. The popular version of Maslow's work? That's really just the tip of the iceberg. See, the real story isn't just about climbing some ladder of needs. It's about discovering the full depth of who we are. And maybe more importantly, what happens after we get everything we thought we wanted.
Okay, so to really get Maslow, you kind of have to picture the world he was stepping into. I mean, psychology in the mid-20th century, it was a pretty grim landscape. So on one hand, you had Freud and his psychoanalysis, which basically saw people as driven by all these dark, unconscious conflicts. And on the other hand, you had behaviorism, which looked at us like we were just, complex machines responding to stuff. Maslow looked at all this and was basically like, really? Is that all we are? And he came up with what he called a third force, a humanistic psychology that dared to ask, what's right with people? So his whole mission, it wasn't about fixing what was broken, it was about understanding what it means to be fully, vibrantly alive. He wanted to study the good stuff, psychological health, creativity, joy, the highest ceilings of human nature, not just digging around in the basement.
And that, of course, is where the famous pyramid comes in. But let's reframe how we look at it. It's not the destination, not at all. Think of it more like the foundation for the entire journey.
So Maslow's big idea was pretty simple, really. Our needs are organized. It makes sense, right? You can't really sit around thinking about your life's purpose if you're starving or you don't feel safe. So first, you've got the absolute basics: food, shelter, safety. Once those are mostly handled, then our psychological needs start to get loud. The need to belong, to be loved, to feel respected. And it's only when those are reasonably met that we can really start to focus on that highest level, self-actualization. And this right here, this quote really gets to the heart of what Maslow was trying to say. He was adamant that these higher needs, for meaning, for growth, they weren't just some nice-to-have luxury. He called them instinctoid, which is a cool word. It basically means they're a part of our biology, like this gentle, built-in nudge pushing us to become more. They're just as real, just as essential to who we are as our need for food. Which brings us to the real peak of his work, because self-actualization, it's not just about getting your needs met. Oh no, it's about becoming everything you have the potential to be. So what does that even look like, right? A fully realized human being? Well, the cool thing is, Maslow didn't just sit in his office and guess. He actually went out and studied the healthiest, most incredible people he could find. And what he discovered was that they all shared this fascinating set of characteristics. Now, these people weren't perfect, not by a long shot. But they were way more spontaneous, more creative, they were really independent, they didn't need everyone else's approval. They had this amazing kind of philosophical sense of humor, not mean-spirited at all. And this is a big one. They were deeply grateful for the good things in life, never taking them for granted. And all of this led to something he called peak experiences. Okay, so what's a peak experience? It's one of those incredible moments where you just feel completely alive, totally in the zone, and just in sync with everything. You know the feeling. It could be watching an incredible sunset, getting totally lost in a piece of music, or finally nailing something you've worked so hard for. It's like a little glimpse of your highest potential. All right, so you've climbed the hierarchy, your needs are met. This should be the end of the story, right? And they lived happily ever after. Well, this is where Maslow's work gets really interesting and honestly pretty profound.
Because he stumbled onto something completely unexpected in his later work. A real twist that challenges pretty much everything we think we know about happiness and living a good life.
He gave it a pretty dramatic name, the pathology of gratification. And here's the shocking discovery. When all our basic needs are met, instead of finding permanent bliss, we can end up with boredom, a sense of aimlessness, that nagging feeling of, wait, is this all there is? It turns out getting everything you ever wanted can create a whole new set of problems. And this led him to a really deep insight. Maybe the process of striving, of working towards something that matters, maybe that's often more fulfilling than actually getting there.
It's like we're built to have a purpose, to always be reaching for something just a little bit out of our grasp. That's what gives life meaning.
So, where does all this leave us? What's Maslow's real legacy? It's not just a triangle on a textbook page. It builds to this final, powerful message for all of us.
When you look at the cover of his classic work, Motivation and Personality, you're really seeing his ultimate legacy. He didn't just give us a theory, he gave us a brand new, much more hopeful, and much more complete philosophy of what a human being is and what we can become. His core belief was this, that deep down, way beyond our basic drives and all our anxieties, every single one of us has this faint, almost instinct-like pull towards becoming better, towards growth, towards kindness. It's not some loud command, it's more like a quiet whisper that's super easy to ignore. But it's always there, just waiting for us to listen.
So you see, the pyramid was never the point. It was just the launch pad. The real question Maslow leaves us with is a deeply personal one. He believed we all have that higher nature inside us, that potential for growth, for creativity, for joy. So the real journey isn't climbing his pyramid. It's discovering, what does yours look like?